A job that generally doesn't generate much attention has been the center of much controversy in recent weeks. Here to talk about it is Duval County property appraiser Joyce Morgan. Welcome.
And thank you. Good morning.
It's very nice to have you here, Joyce. You have been probably getting a lot of unwanted scrutiny lately from the state, from the city council. What is at the root of this movement, this conversation that's been happening at both the state and the city level?
There have been so many different things. Which one would you like to talk about first?
Whatever you choose. I mean, politics is part of it, right?
Well, I think so. But, my job is I'm a constitutional officer. And so I have to do what's mandated by the state and what's mandated by the Department of Revenue. And so every day that we get up and come to the property appraiser's office, if we remember that, I think that that's the most important thing for us to remember is who we are and what we are mandated to do every day by the state of Florida.
Are you having conversations like that with your staff? Is it difficult for them to maintain focus given all of this kind of heat and light?
No, I think that they do a pretty good job every single day because even though there's a lot of attention that's focused on us now from the outside, we've also always had attention focused on us because we have to produce the tax roll for the city of Jacksonville for Duval County. That is our mandate every single day. So we're always under scrutiny. We're under scrutiny with the Department of Revenue. I mean, they're constantly auditing us. They're constantly looking at what we do. And so if we're doing something wrong, they would be the first to call us out.
Tell us a little bit about the job of property appraiser. I mean, first of all, I think I'm curious how you decided personally to move in this direction. I mean, your background, as I knew you, was as most people in the community knew you for many, many years, was as an anchor at Channel 4. And then you moved into politics. You joined the city council representing Arlington. What prompted you to move into this field? Because it seems in some ways very far afield from what you used to do.
I think I learned so much as a city council member. So 8 years on the city council, 3 of those years I was on the Value Adjustment Board. 2 of those years I served as the chair of the Value Adjustment Board, which meant that I was dealing directly with the property appraiser's office. And we'll talk about that a little more about the Value Adjustment Board and exactly what they do. And so definitely intrigued by what the property appraiser does. Also intrigued by the fact that as important of a job as this is and what the office does, the number of people that really are not in tune to exactly what we do.
Yeah, I'm sure it is a learning experience. And I know that you've tried to do some community education on that. I mean, so let's talk about the job. You know, the conversation that has been happening in the last couple of weeks has had everything to do with, how much tax is the city collecting? Is the city collecting more tax? And I want to get to that, but your job is fundamentally not about setting the tax rate. Your job is determining how much based
The
on that rate.
taxable value is.
Right.
Okay.
So explain what that is.
So let's look at the whole list of things that we do. First of all, it's just what you said, fair and equitable assessment of the values of property. And that's real property as well as personal tangible property. Okay, the next thing that we do is we maintain the city's property database. So all properties are housed on our website. If you want to look at any property, you can go on our website. The exemptions, all of the exemptions are mandated by state law. So it's up to our staff to put those exemptions in and administer those exemptions. And last and foremost is we must defend our values. So whatever values we are putting out there to the public, we must defend them not only to the public, but as I said, to the Department of Revenue.
Yeah.
So we're defending those every day. Everything that we do, we have to be very mindful of what we're doing because somebody is looking over our shoulders.
I'm curious. I want to take a few of those individually, starting with the assessments. I know that people, you've said your office determines the
The taxable.
the taxable
Mhm.
value January 1, that basically that decision's made and that kind of continues through that calendar year. How are those assessments made? Are your people driving around to neighborhoods? Are they looking at homes? Are they eyeballing these properties, or are they just sort of making calculations based on recent home sales in that area?
We do all of the above. So I have one whole department that's called our field department, and they're going out every day to look at properties. As you know, the building department, you have to get a permit when you're building. So that's also the signal for my guys to go out and take a look. When you're pulling permits to do new work or maybe renovations, that will also drive my field department to go out and take a look at what you're doing because all of those are part of the assessments that we do. But by the same token, we also use mass appraisal, and that's different from fee appraisals when you're buying or selling a home and you're getting the fee appraisal done. My staff doesn't do that. We do mass appraisal. So we use computer assisted mass appraisal, or it's CAMA for short. That's how we're valuing property. So we're looking at just a number of things in our communities and doing comparable sales in those different communities.
I want to talk a little bit about the homestead exemption in a bit because that is one of these, ways that people can save money on their property taxes. But just fundamentally, there's this conversation about will the state do away with property
Mhm.
taxes? That's something that has been proposed by our governor. I know that, even just yesterday, Senator Albritton was saying, everybody take a breath. This isn't happening. This isn't reality just yet. We're going to move methodically if we're moving in that direction. But it has been a very, naked proposal. It could happen, right? Do you think, first of all, that the city is currently over reliant on property taxes? It makes up 1.2 billion of the 2 billion
Mhm.
operating budget for the city of Jacksonville. And it would appear that Jacksonville is especially vulnerable to this change if it were to happen.
I think you're absolutely right. But one of the things that I have to be careful of as the property appraiser in my role is not to get into policy. So to stay away from policy, it's really not my decision anymore. Now, when I was on city council, absolutely. That was part of what I did, part of making those policy decisions, part of setting the millage rate. I do none of that now. I am totally dependent upon what the state says and what the state mandates. As far as totally eliminating property taxes, that is a mouthful. And as you saw, the special select committee that the state had, they've done two meetings, and I hope that they'll do more meetings where they really talk about the value of property taxes versus eliminating them and looking at all of the options. Because right now, I hear that the options could be the sales tax. Is that enough? Would that do what local governments really need to do? Would that fund the different things that local government funds, starting with police and fire, starting with roads, starting with all of those services that all of us depend on?
I mean, we know that, if lawmakers eliminated property taxes, it's estimated that they would lose $43 billion worth of revenue
Mhm.
and would need to collect from individuals over $2,000 per capita, basically, to replenish that.
And we don't have a state income tax.
And we don't have a state income tax. So that, I mean, I guess sales tax would be the possible option. They would essentially have to at least double that.
It would look different.
Yeah.
It would look very, very different.
We're talking to Duval County property appraiser Joyce Morgan about the coming tax cycle and how assessments are made. If you've got questions or comments, you can join our conversation. Give us a call at 904-549-2937. You can email firstcoastconnect at wjct.org, or you can reach out on Facebook, Instagram, or X at FCC On Air. So the claim about property tax collections is really what the concern has been at the state level. State Doge has said that our property tax um, collections have soared and by 57% since 2020. So that's pre-pandemic. Is that an accurate number? Are those numbers best you can tell on target?
Well, I would say that those are their numbers, and no one ever consulted us. So we're really not in that conversation, other than the fact we are the brunt of the conversation. So when we look at it, I've been property appraiser for 2 years, and um, over that time, taxable values have gone up. But we're also looking at market values. We're also looking at the economy. We're also looking at interest rates. We're looking at a lot of things that pretty much control the market. Again, property appraisers' offices never control the market. We follow the market. So, whatever that market is putting out, those are the values that we have to use. We don't manufacture those. We use what is produced by the market.
Right. And so we know that, it has been a tight market, a housing market.
Now, yes,
Values
but
have
before it wasn't.
before.
Last few years, the market was booming. So many people were coming to Jacksonville, especially during the COVID time
Mhm.
in 2019, 2020, when people could just move to anywhere they wanted to work and work from home. So we were seeing an influx of people coming in during that time. Well, that drives the market. People are coming in from the West Coast, from the North, and they're coming in with cash money to buy homes. Drives the market up. Supply and demand, really,
Yeah.
just the economy.
We've got a call from Brad at the beaches. Good morning, Brad. You're on with the property appraiser.
Yeah, I'm so glad she just mentioned the market because kind of what's happening here at the beach, I could give you an example of a family friend, Aunt Sandy. Her mother purchased their home in the late 50s. The home was paid off in the 80s. Sandy moved in with her mom as she was aging, and her mom had homestead that whole time. When her mom passed away, that homestead exemption dropped, and suddenly a property that needs a new roof, suddenly a property that doesn't have an AC, has had no improvement in 50 years, quadruples in value. So I think a lot of times when families or we talk about getting rid of the property tax, it's the idea that some people are losing their homes, and the idea that you could buy property and pass it on to your kids is something we all kind of held to be true. And in the taxing rate of Duval County, again, when you mention the market, because you could tear down Aunt Sandy's house and build a duplex on it, it's worth a lot to a builder. But not many people would pay that much money to live in that actual house. And so I feel like when you talk about the market has really affected a lot of Floridians, and that's why they're clamoring for property tax, some sort of property tax break. When you address the market, how do you say that because a builder could buy it and would pay much more because he can make a profit, that somehow Aunt Sandy needs to pay that because her mom passed away?
It's a great question, Brad, and it is a real tragedy when that is happening in a family situation. I'm sure you hear stories like that all the time.
And we do.
What do you say to them? What do you say to someone like Brad?
Unfortunately, there is only a little bit that we can say because, again, we're not driving it. My staff has the duty to assess it. Again, we don't drive it. We know that lawmakers really do need to look at how we help. There have been many proposals, and as you know, in this session, none of the proposals really went by. But I think they're going to still look at it, especially coming up next session. They're going to have to look at it because all of these things are absolutely true. Everything is true, but we don't drive it. Um, we simply just don't drive it. We know it's true. We know that there are things that could be done, and I've heard even one state lawmaker wanted to, of course, increase the homestead exemption. And I know you wanted to talk about homestead, but homestead right now can go up to $50,000 per home. It has to be the home that is your primary residence, the home that you live in. It can't be your rental property. It has to be the home that you live in. So, initiatives like that would possibly help us.
I mean, it seems like, homestead exemptions and then the Save Our Homes cap, which is on homesteaded
Mhm.
properties,
Mhm.
are sort of a double-edged sword. I mean, if you're living in a house and you say, "Well, it's homesteaded and I can take $50,000 off of the taxable value," that's great.
Mhm.
Your cap is 3% annually, which means
Correct.
it's not soaring year after year. But then you have the situation that Brad describes, which is as soon as that property changes hands,
It can go
whoever
up.
gets it, even if it's a family member,
Mhm.
gets hit with the full assessed value, and um, it can be, daunting.
Yeah, non-homestead, it can go up to 10%.
Okay, so that's the annual limit, 10%, but it can go up 10% year after year
Yes.
after that
Yes,
if
it
it's
can.
not homesteaded. Okay. And so you would send people like Brad to lawmakers? I mean, you say it's not something that you can control.
No,
That's up to them to change?
it is. It
Mhm.
is absolutely.
Um, right now, for people who are about to receive their trim notices, you can tell us what that stands for, but, people are going to start receiving a notice of how much they're going to owe. Those could hit the mailboxes as soon as Friday, I guess.
Yes, Saturday, I think.
Okay.
Mhm.
And so what happens once that happens? You've got in front of you a very sort of daunting looking document with a lot of numbers and a lot of lines on it.
Yes, and this is the trim notice that I am looking at, and this is what's going out on the 16th. And so when people receive this, we really want them to not throw it away. We want them to take a look at it. I know that sometimes when mail comes, we get so much mail, and a lot of people consider much of the mail that they get junk mail. But this is not junk mail. It says on it, do not pay. This is not a bill. And I think that maybe that's what draws people attention.
Uh,
When they see it's not a bill, they simply put it away. But this is the 2025 Notice of Proposed Property Taxes, and that's going to be your tax liability. So you do want to kind of look at it. You want to look at the taxable values. You want to look at the millage rate, because right now the city council is dealing with the millage rate. And as you know, they have decided to roll it back. But that will not take effect until October 1st. It also means that when you look on the back of this notice, there is a total list of all of the taxing authorities that are sending us information on millage rates. You will notice that there's a hearing date for each one of those taxing authorities. Now, Duval County's taxing authority, which is our city council, that's going to happen on Tuesday, September the 9th. And I think it's important that if you're saying, I don't like this, that is your first stop. That's really your first stop. The next stop would to be to call us. Now, we can't change your millage rate. That's city council. But what we can do is if you see something that really bothers you, if an exemption is wrong or something like that, then you definitely call us and let us know, and then we can take a look at that. If you think you were owed an exemption that you did not get, let us know. The next thing you can do is if you're saying that this is just all wrong, petitions can be filed by September 9th. That's 25 days after this proposed tax notice goes out. At that time, then you can go before the Value Adjustment Board. And that's what I was talking to you about earlier, being on the Value Adjustment Board. Value Adjustment Board does take a look, and they will listen to taxpayers talk about why they feel that this could be wrong, and they make the final determination. Once that determination is made, then that's pretty much it. If you feel that that's not enough, then you would have to do a lawsuit.
is there any role that the Value Adjustment Board can play in a situation like we just heard our caller describe, property being passed to a family member and that homestead exemption going away. Is there any option that they have at that point?
I don't think so, and the reason being is because all of this is mandated by state statute. So it's not something, Save Our Homes is state statute. So that's not something that the Value Adjustment Board can overturn.
Gotcha. We've got a call from Kevin in Jacksonville. Good morning, Kevin. Go ahead.
Good morning, neighbors. Thanks for taking the call. Appreciate the conversation.
Sure.
This may be a minority opinion, but I would be willing to accept property tax increases if the citizens of Jacksonville were able to just realize basic city services being provided. But if we look around and look at the lack of litter cleanup, blight control, street sweeping, police efficiency, JEA efficiency, I think that's probably why there's so much angst around this property tax conversation. But heck, if we could just get some basic city services around here, please increase my taxes. But we need to see that money actually being spent wisely.
Kevin, thanks for your input. Is that a perspective you hear very often, Joyce?
Sometimes I hear that, but again, I probably heard it when I was more on the legislative side than I hear on this side.
Mm-hmm.
On this side, I just hear make it lower.
We got this email from Scott. I'm not sure that this actually is something that you oversee or would even appear on this tax bill, but he's saying, how much will the garbage collection fee be on people's property tax bill? That's something that the city council approved.
Yes.
Are fees something that appear on this document?
No.
Okay. And so that's not something that you oversee or
No.
know will
And
be
it- and
calculated.
if-
But we do know I believe the estimate that council was putting forth was, it's going to be a few $100s, $200 or $300 for people per household in that range.
Mhm.
And that will be a significant increase. So I want to ask you about, you don't control the millage rate. The millage rate is set by the city council. And so they may or may not change the actual tax rate. But even if the tax rate remains the same, because of the increase in property values, people experience a sort of sticker shock.
Mhm.
And so their rate may not be going up. But if your home was worth, $275,000 before the pandemic, and it's increased because of all of the changes you mentioned, to something over $300,000 or close to $400,000, those people will see a tax increase of, about 40% in that time. So when they're paying taxes, they are paying more taxes, and that's a reality.
It is a reality, but the other thing that I want our listeners and our viewers to understand is that I have 113 employees. Many of us are homeowners as well. We experience the exact same thing that everybody else does. So we're not in a bubble. We're not in a shell. We pay the exact same taxes that everybody else does too. And so I think that a lot of times people seem to think that we're the bad guys. We're really not the bad guys. We're really not. We're doing our job. We're absolutely doing our job. We're doing it to the best of our ability every single day. And we're not here to, quote, make revenue for the city.
Mhm.
That's not our job. Our job is to do what's mandated by the state and assess the value of property.
So Florida, allows for these local taxes to be collected, and ad valorem is different from other taxes. I mean, we
Mhm.
briefly mentioned, a sales tax, but an ad valorem tax is essentially proportional to the value of the assessed item.
Correct.
But there are also things known as specific taxes, which are maybe like a bed tax that we collect when
Mhm.
someone stays at a hotel. And then there's sales taxes, which are kind of transactional taxes. And those are all ways that local governments can collect revenue, or the state.
Correct.
Um, but this one, because it's so flexible, is something that I think people sometimes have greater confusion about, how it is determined and why it's always in flux. Do you feel like you're able to do some community outreach to help people better understand just, the calculus behind assessing value
Yes.
or giving them options?
Absolutely. And For my 2 years, I have really been out in the community as much as possible. And I think that's why, because it seemed that when I came into office, it was right around the time when a lot of people were really, really talking a lot about property taxes and the assessment and the values and things like that. So I made it a priority in my office to really do a lot of community outreach. We spend a lot of time in the community. I try to spend as much time as I can with realtors because um, just think they're the ones buying and selling every single day.
Mm.
They're using our website probably more than anybody other than insurance agents and other people like that. But we have a lot of people who are on our website. And so it's really important to me for seniors, for veterans, for first time home buyers. It the list goes on and on and on for whom we're trying to reach because it's so important. I was at my CPAC meeting not too long ago, and I talked to them about it. And I said, anytime you guys want us to come out, let us know. So we're going to be going out to as many of the CPACs as we can get to, just to talk to them, just to let them know what's going on and bring them up to date on what they need to know because we have important dates, just like any other business. There are certain dates that are mandated that we have to hit
Right.
every single year.
And the important dates that you mentioned, in part are 25 days if when people receive this
Mhm.
notice that they can make an appeal to the Value Adjustment Board. And also,
January 1st. Remember, January 1st is the date that is used to pretty much set the values. So that's an important date. If you're in your home on January 1st, that's important to us. If you're not in your home, that's also important to us, but it's all deemed by January 1st.
and again, if people are interested in attending the hearings on whether or not their taxes will go
Mhm.
up or stay the same, or I guess potentially go down, which is being discussed, all of those
Correct.
hearing dates are listed on that notice as well. I just briefly want to touch on, the Value Adjustment Board is the body that you used to serve on that
Mhm.
hears these appeals, and there is a fee associated with those appeals. It just recently went up a not insignificant amount. It's been $15, and now it's going to be $50. That was something that a city council member, Rockman Johnson, kind of
Yes.
carried the ball on. So that does make it more expensive for people to appeal. Are you worried that that's prohibitive? I mean, I know it had been a while since that rate had changed.
I'm not worried. I think that for most people, hopefully they will be able to get it solved with just a phone call to us, getting us to take another look at it, whatever, addressing their concern on the telephone. Of course, if we can't, then they do have to go to the Value Adjustment Board. The other thing that we want to let people know is that 25 days is that, just that. So even if you call us on the telephone, remember that the clock is still ticking on that 25 days, and you do want to keep that in mind.
And so they are allowed to call you because you can answer some of those
Yes,
questions.
yes, we can.
And you can, I mean, you're even without going to the Value Adjustment
Mhm.
Board, you are willing in some cases to look and possibly reassess what they've been notified about.
That's correct. If they can show just cause and